We've got a great lineup for you today, and including an inspiring luncheon event celebrating our Circle of Champion for 2023. Please make sure to come back tonight and celebrate business in Cheyenne at our Business to Business Expo. Business Month is presented by DAP CPA, Pope and Jackson Inc. We're grateful for their commitment to our community, and we're honored to have them as our presenting sponsor again for Business Month. Please join me in welcoming David Pope to share a few thoughts with us.
Thank you, and thanks for being here, everyone. The banquet theme this year was centered around The Wizard of Oz, and I've always loved that movie. My wife thought it was really scary as a kid with the flying monkeys and everything. But I've always loved it because it contained two central themes that I really enjoyed. The first one being that no matter how much you try and escape your home, you always turn back and find out that there really is no place like home. And the secondary themes, I just think are wonderful. The Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion. All three of them thought that they needed something that they already had. And when they realized that they already had those, their whole lives changed and the world opened up to them. Sometimes you just have to take stock of what you have, and you'll realize that you already have what you thought you needed. It's about opening the world up for yourself, about taking that one step that turns into a leap of faith as a person, as a business, and as a community. That's why it's such a pleasure supporting the Chamber and supporting you. When you build the Chamber, you build your business. And when you build your business, you build the community, and you build your life. Then together you have everything that you think you might have been missing. I'm David Pope with DAP CPA. Welcome to the DAP CPA Greater Cheyenne Chamber of Commerce Business Week. Let's make it our business, and let's make it together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. Yes, our award ceremony was a lot of fun. I loved the Wizard of Oz theme. That was great. Thank you. So let's recognize our sponsors for today. So I'm going to go through our list of gold sponsors: Blue Cross Blue Shield of Wyoming, iHeartMedia, Little America Hotel and Resort, Magic City Enterprises, Inc., New Vision Federal Credit Union, Traders Publishing, and Unawyo Credit Union. Let's give them a round of applause. And then next I'll go through our silver sponsors, which are Appaloosa Broadcasting, Applebee's, Blue Frettle Credit Union, Cheyenne Animal Shelter, Graffiti Cuisine, Halliday Motors, Inc., Jonah Bank of Wyoming, KT Connections, Inc., Laramie County Community College, Pete's Builders, Pinnacle Bank, Remax Capital Properties, Town Square Media, Wing Shack, and YO Support. Let's give them a round of applause. And then our bronze sponsors: Advanced Comfort Solutions, A&D Bank, Cheyenne Regional Medical Center, Express Employment Professionals, High West Energy Companies, Meridian Trust Federal Credit Union, Mountain Health Co-op, Ryman Corp, RLR LLP, Spectrum Enterprise, U.S. Bank, Walmart Store 4653, Wells Fargo Bank, and Western Vista Federal Credit Union. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you all for making today's luncheon possible. I would like to ask Kelly Ceballos from Jonah Bank and our Red Carpet Committee to come forward to come forward to welcome our new members.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Yes, my name is Glenn Savias. I'm from Luncheon Bank. I'm on the Red Carpet Committee. Just real quick, we've been trying to do a better job about explaining who we are and what we do. One of the benefits about being on the Red Carpet Committee is whenever a new business joins the chamber, we get to go to that business, meet them, and get a chance to talk with them, spend some time with them. So if that seems like it would be interesting to you, please come find anyone that's on the Red Carpet Committee. We typically wear red, or as best as we can wear red, and or anyone at the chamber to find out more about that. Today we have two new businesses that we're going to welcome to the chamber. The first is RTC Wyoming. We have Cole Hickert and Matt Stevens. Since 2007, RTC Restoration and Roofing has offered residential and commercial restoration throughout northern Colorado, southern Wyoming, and St. Petersburg area, available 24/7, 365. Our certified restoration experts can be out to your property quickly to perform immediate damage mitigation and create a customized plan for your property's build back. In addition to fire, mold, and water, we can do damage restoration projects, and we handle roofing and exterior remodeling too. As a licensed general contractor, we take extraordinary measures to recover what we can and rebuild what we cannot. So thank you, RTC. Next, we have Tolan Mechanical. We have Whitty Whitcomb and Megan Kitcher. Tolan Mechanical is a privately held commercial HVAC service and facility management company serving building owners and operators throughout the Rocky Mountains, Midwest, and Mid-Atlantic regions of the United States. We now provide services in Colorado, Arizona, Wyoming, and Washington, D.C. We partner with commercial, industrial, and institutional and government organizations to maintain their buildings for safe, healthy, and energy-efficient operations. Sweet, thanks guys. And that is our last new member. So thanks everyone, we'll get whoever's up next.
So I'm just going to go a little off script for a second. So those chamber plaques are really kind of cool. It's fun to see how some of them are from like a really long time ago. And you get that little card every year. So the chamber, the chair of the chamber gets to kind of pick out what that design is going to be. So look at your little card and your plaque. I got to pick that this year. We did the design of all of the boots. They're kind of in shadow behind there. So I thought I'd mention that to people because it looks kind of like, what is that thing? So yeah, just so you know, that's kind of a fun little thing when you get to be the chamber director, you get to do that. So anyway, thank you so much, Kelly. Welcome to all of our new members. October is the month that we look forward to the future and elect new leadership for the Chamber of Commerce. As chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, I now declare that the 2024 membership meeting of the Greater Cheyenne Chamber of Commerce is open. Today we have one item on our agenda, the election of new board members. The current board of directors has certified that the nominating process has been appropriately completed, and the slate for consideration is as follows. Nominees for the 2024 Chamber Board of Directors are Robert Jensen with Holland and Hart, Steve Prescott, Remax Capital Properties, Joy DiRenzo, Pete's Builders, Pat Ashworth with Express Employment, and Jason Stephen with Gateway Construction, LLC. Following today's luncheon, the primary listed on each membership will be emailed a link to vote for the candidates. The voting will close on October 20th at 5 p.m. Now I'd like to welcome Dale to the stage. Dale.
Good afternoon, everyone. So good to see everyone here. It's a beautiful day in Cheyenne, Wyoming. You know, I know when she was talking about those cards, some of you were thinking, oh, that's what those cards are for. So, because I've been into your business and you have the plaque proudly displayed up front, but you have the card from like 1943 or something. So just as a reminder, that's what that's for. So you get those in January. Just a couple of things for you today. You know, I got to tell you, today is one of my favorite events that we do all year at the Chamber of Commerce. You know, for us, the servant leadership proposition coupled with purposeful excellence is what we try to accomplish. We don't always meet that goal, but it is always what we aspire to. And it's so wonderful to hear from people who have actually lived that in our community. So the Circle of Champions thing just gets to be a real inspiration for us as chamber staff and as an organization. Additionally, it's business month, right? We had an economic forecast last Friday. You know, business has they're a little worried across the country. But when we looked at where we lived, we are doing a lot better and have a much different trajectory than some of the rest of the country. And that's because we work at that, right? It's because of how we plan and how we've been committed to our community. So the flying monkeys, David, you know, I was scared of the flying monkeys when I was a kid too. But you know, and that's what we as chambers, we can always say that about Kansas. Well, you don't need tornadoes and witches and flying monkeys. Come to Wyoming, we don't have those things, right? David Pope has been a long-time sponsor of all the events of Business Week and our Business Expo this afternoon, where you get to meet many, many wonderful small businesses. So please make plans right now to attend that. It opens at 4 o'clock. And David, we appreciate your continued support. And also, he has to deal with me as treasurer, so we appreciate that too. Thank you for all you do for our chamber. Let's give him another round of applause. So some of you, the cake in front of you represents a birthday cake. Joy from Pete's Builders, I think your birthday's today, right? Yeah, we won't talk about age, like 29 and holding forever, right? But the Christmas parade is right around the corner. So you guys make plans to give us some volunteers. The city has upped our requirements for the number of people we need. So I think you can make this a fun thing with your business, get some volunteers, hold a street corner for us. You know, represent your business, get a little advertising out. Steve Prescott smiling at me like he's not buying that. I don't know what the deal. And he said, it's cold, I get it. But it's a wonderful program and we could use your support. So if you can do that, please get on and sign up. And if you can't, buy a poinsettia. You could always buy a poinsettia for your wife, Steve. I know she deserves it. You probably have done something within the last week that would move you to do such a thing. So this is a win-win for you, right? All right. Also, women's leadership nominations are getting ready to open up. So in December, we always, that's our month. We celebrate women's leadership in our community. And so we want to recognize one particular woman leader as someone who has done something fantastic and is leading this community and has been a great example to other women. So if you know that woman or she works in your office, please nominate her. We want to recognize those people. Also, this Thursday, we have a business after hour at Ryman Construction. So I know that will be a good one, and it's their, 75th, and wow, somebody's been around a long time. So make a point to come to that and tell them congratulations on their many years of being a good Wyoming business and Cheyenne business. A couple other things, just let you know, are happening. One thing is we are getting very involved in education nowadays, and one of the things that we are working with chambers across the country is the National Civics Bee. So the Cheyenne Chamber is going to pick up the Civics Bee for the entire state of Wyoming. I gave the test to about 200 people. Only 2 people made 100, and we need to know more about civics, right? So we're going to be pushing this, so please work with us on that. There'll be some opportunities to volunteer. Very exciting event. Hope you participate with us in that. Another thing we've been promising you is a housing study, so we are working on the final details of that right now. We should be very impressed as a community that we have done a lot to deal with our housing crisis that we had a few years ago. We're not perfect. We still got work to do, but it indicates that, so we'll get that out to you very soon. Additionally, we've been working on the development rules along with housing, right? Trying to make it easier for our businesses to do business within the community and with the county. I've had several talks with the county commission and with the mayor talking about how that might happen. We need to continue those. We'll keep you updated as we go along. Well, I know you want to hear from Joe, and we want to give him some time, and Joe and Rita, so we are going to do our drawings, and I'll get out of here. So the free lunch today goes to Betsy McDonald with TST, Town Square Title of Wyoming. So Betsy, see my junior staff and we'll get you the free lunch. $3056550. So you have to come and get the money. At this time, I'd invite Jess Ryan to the stage. He's the chair of our business council at the chamber, and they do and plan all these events over this month. So please give Jess a round of applause as he comes forward. Nice try, Jess. She isn't part of it.
Visualize. Okay. Today's a celebration of business in Cheyenne. One of our favorite events of the year has been our Circle of Champions event. It is inspiring to hear from folks who poured their heart and soul into our community. We're very excited to hear from this year's Circle of Champions honoree. Our interview this year will be conducted by Dr. Joe Schaefer, president of LCCC. Joe, we're appreciative that you volunteered your time to help with this very worthy project every year. Without further ado, I'd also like to introduce this year's honoree. Rita Meyer is a dynamic force in Cheyenne. Renowned for her unwavering dedication to public service and vibrant involvement in the community. She's a standout figure, known for leaving an indelible mark on the community through her proactive initiatives and tireless efforts. During the next 30 minutes, we'll delve into her compelling character and the exhilarating ways she's helped shape and elevated the lives of those around her. Get ready for an exciting glimpse into Rita Meyer's impactful journey, and please welcome the 2023 Circle of Champions honoree Rita Meyer and Dr. Joe Schaefer.
Are we on?
First of all, Joe thinks he's going to lead this. I noticed, Joe, that you have the wrap-up remarks, so I think I should get to do introductory remarks. Here is the deal.
I've never had it taken over by somebody.
Joe is my new friend, and we haven't had a chance to sit down very often. We sat down last week for a few minutes. Joe lobbed some questions over at me, but I just have to tell you, I didn't pay much attention, and I never looked at those questions again. So what I have to ask Joe, number one, who's the timekeeper? Are you the timekeeper?
I'm the
Very
time.
important. These are really, really busy people, and we need to get them back to their job and creating and supporting our economy. So that's really important. So you're the timekeeper. Okay, I got that. So in addition to that, do these people They pay for the meal, but they have to pay to hear me speak. Because it gives us a lot more latitude if you didn't have to pay anything to hear me speak, because we can just go off script. I never get to go off script because my job is talking about siting a nuclear power reactor in Wyoming. I can never afford to go off script. But if these people did not pay for this meal, then we can just kind of crinkle it.
I think you're safe. They paid for that Christmas cake.
Well, they did?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm gonna take my note, and then I'm gonna say to my husband over there, my darling husband, don't eat my cake while I'm up here. Please. Okay, Joe, I'm gonna turn it back to you so you can breathe a sigh of relief. I'll be good now.
Thank you, Rita. I think Dale will have to talk about this job in the future. So, no, ladies and gentlemen, it truly is a privilege and an honor to be here today as we get to celebrate an amazing life of an amazing individual. That's our newest inductee into the
Very long life.
Circle of Champions. One of our biggest challenges always is figuring out how you cover so much ground in such little time to adequately tell the story of somebody who's had an amazing impact on our state and on our communities. So before we start, one more round of applause, please, for Rita. So now I have to take time, manage time, but I don't have to stick to the script. But I'm going to do my best to get us through this wonderful story. So we're celebrating a lifetime of your contributions and achievements here in Wyoming. It's an impressive and very compelling journey that all started in small town Nebraska. So tell us about where you're from, your childhood, and your family, and how these things shaped who you are today.
I would just say, first of all, if you want these things to go faster and not run out of time, you need to get younger people up here on the stage. So when you're interviewing an almost 73-year-old person, there's a lot of history to come. But back to your question. I was born in the northeast corner of Nebraska. My dad was a hired hand all of his life for lack of education. We had, him being a hired hand, we were the kids that really did all the work, but we were unpaid. That's why, they had big families in those days to help support, those jobs. So it was a really bare bones existence for our family. There were no safety nets like there are today for families, particularly in rural America. And that's why I am such a champion of education. I'm such a champion of feeding children in schools. I'm not afraid that we might feed one child whose family has the means to pay but doesn't pay. Children can't learn if their brains are not fed. So I grew up in that environment, and I'm forever grateful. And I say, as my travels around the world, I'm forever grateful that I've had the opportunity to grow up in the United States of America. There's no country like it in the world. And there's no way that someone coming from the humble beginnings that was my starting life could possibly have had the wonderful opportunities that I've had. That's because of education. But back to the farm, we stayed there until my dad got another job as a hired hand on a ranch in western Nebraska and moved there when I was in 4th grade. I went to one-room schools. I was a product of one-room schools. We rode our horses to school. There were no yellow school buses then. We rode our horses to school in good weather, and then we had a buggy that we took in the colder weather. But gathered around the table, and that's why I just get freaked out when there is food wasted, as I see in too many places, in restaurants and home environments, and having had the opportunity of living around the world where children don't necessarily today get what they need to eat. I freak out when food is wasted. But there were 7 of us, and there was one chicken usually in the middle of the table, particularly when it was a time Mom was raising chickens. So there was a chicken on the table at noon, a chicken on the table at night, but there were 7 people. Now, it was decided early on, I was a pretty scrawny kid. It's why I've been hungry ever since. I'm sure, and have made up for those years. But, one chicken doesn't go far for 7 hungry people. And I was relegated to doing the prayer. I was a good little girl. The others not so much in the family. And I was good, close my eyes for the prayer, what you do. And then I would open my eyes and all the chicken was gone except for the darn neck. So I actually had the neck. And if you remember a chicken, I don't even know whether people eat necks today. There is not much meat on the neck. So not only did I grab every piece I could from the neck, but I learned to suck the marrow out of the bones of the chicken neck. But it served me well. You know, I grew up big and strong, and I have never had a broken bone. So I ascribe that to my early learning of how to make the most out of a chicken neck. But we moved to western Nebraska. Once again, my dad was a hired hand, worked in the sale barn part-time. Once again, we kids were employed without pay or any other compensation, helping my dad. And you know, we all left. I want to say one more word. When my oldest brother left, it was great because I finally had a whole piece of chicken. When I came back home, I wasn't as happy as my mom was when I came back home to visit, because that was one less. I was back to the neck again. But it was a hard life. And when I graduated from high school, and I wasn't able to participate in a lot of extra events in high school, I was a strong academician. But sometimes when you are the poorest kid in school, you get overlooked. I didn't have a clue about how to apply for a college scholarship. My family hadn't gone on to higher education. In the small schools, the superintendent, the principal was also the football coach, also the math teacher, the science teacher, and the guidance counselor. And when you're a poor kid, trust me, you get overlooked for opportunities, or at that time we did. So didn't go to college right out of graduation from high school. I could. Academically, I was there. I had few social skills because when you're in poverty and you don't have experiences, oftentimes you don't develop good social skills. So I was very awkward socially and couldn't talk to people. And then as my husband said, but once you learn, you never shut. But so I went to a technical school, and Joe and I did talk about this, and why I'm such a champion of technical schools and community colleges. Without that segue into higher education, I do not know where I would be today. And so I started in a technical school, Omaha, Nebraska, in the 60s. The race riots were in full gear, but I had never seen a black person. I'd never ridden on an elevator, on an escalator, never eaten in a restaurant, or been on a city bus. So I went to, it was a technical school then, before it became a community college. It was right next to a job corps in downtown Omaha. And in those years, the job corps were kind of tough places to be. Not so, we have a great job corps up here in Wyoming, one of the last to be stood up, I think, in the United States. But were it not for that technical school, it was my mother paid $12 a month, which was a real sacrifice for her, for the tuition and the uniforms. I went to a certified dental assisting program, graduated from that, and that was my beginning, because I got a job, almost didn't get the job because the dentist said I couldn't talk to people, but I learned to do that. I had champions there in the workplace with people. And went on to higher education, University of Nebraska, Omaha, Creighton University, and finished ultimately my degrees up in here in University of Wyoming. Did I cover enough in that first? He's only going to get to 3.
You're on page 3, so I'm going to pull the reins. So one thing I want to go back just a second, because we had a conversation about how powerful the influence of certain individuals are in our life, and sometimes we don't even think about it until we reflect on it. You had a social studies teacher in school that opened up some opportunities and left really an impact on you. Tell us about that teacher and what type of opportunities were opened as a result of that relationship.
My social studies teacher, Mrs. Ross, recognized something in me that I did not recognize in myself. And there was a a forum on global affairs, in Kearney, Nebraska, 3 hours away from where our high school was. And she tapped me to be a part of that. Now I had to run home, we didn't have the internet then, and look in the dictionary to see what global was and to see what forum was, because I didn't have a clue. But her reaching out and touching me, and my experience, to see there was something bigger than this little town of Johnstown, Nebraska, population 80. There was something much bigger. I couldn't envision leaving the county. I couldn't envision there were other counties in the state, or there were other, it just didn't, we didn't have the ability to travel, didn't know about so many things, but that really opened up my eyes, that there was a whole bigger world that I had hoped to have an opportunity to participate in. But I also knew from her guidance that I couldn't get from there to there without an education. But I will never forget her kindness and the fact that I said she saw something in me that I couldn't see for myself.
It's such a wonderful story. Sometimes we don't realize the impact even small connections that we have on others, especially youth, can have on the trajectory of a life. And that story just really stuck with me. So you were in Omaha, you went through technical school, dental assisting was sort of your piece. We're here celebrating your success in Cheyenne and Wyoming. So help us connect how you got from Nebraska to Wyoming.
Well, in 1976, I met and married a guy who was a native of Wyoming, a native of Rollins, Wyoming, and native Wyomingites always come back home. And he was a dentist, and we built a home in Centennial, Wyoming, and lived in Centennial, and he had a dental practice in Laramie, and our son went to St. Lawrence O'Toole School in Laramie, K through 6th, and then that school closed. It only went to 6th grade. I was busier and busier at the Air National Guard, and realized that I just needed to be in Cheyenne, and he ultimately helped to start the dental hygiene program at the college and became the state dental health director. So we ended up here. I was here barely 6 weeks, and we got the call up for Desert Storm when Kuwait was invaded, and the rest is history. Went on to serve over in Iraq and other places in the sandbox.
So we'll get there, but this is what's interesting. So Cheyenne is certainly military friendly, and we believe real strongly in the servicemen and women that do things. Sometimes we have this picture of people who start out in the military, young, single, all those things. Your story is very different. In fact, you were well on the way with a career, starting a family, and a child I think was about kindergarten age when you enlisted in the military. So tell us what motivated you, what drove you, what led to that, and then how did you succeed with all of those other things going on in your life?
Well, you don't do it without a tremendous support system. And my husband, God bless his soul, we were married 34 years and he passed away a number of years ago. But that support system allowed me to make these choices that can be very, very difficult on families. But I had always wanted to be in the military. My dad was in the military, all the lineage up, grandfathers, great-grandfathers. My brothers had fought in Vietnam. And I've always wanted to, but it's always about timing when you make these choices. Was married, we had a child in kindergarten, and frankly, I was over on the campus at University of Wyoming, and I walked by a recruiter table. And it was just like Christmas candy to me. I was just like drawn to it because here it was, the red, white, blue, and recruiters are great. They're really great at bringing you in. And the guy that brought me in was just here from California. We had a great reunion a couple weeks ago. But I thought, this is for me. I'm going to sign up. Now, I hadn't told my husband yet, but he had always been such an understanding man. So anyway, I went home and I said, let's have a family meeting. We're gonna, we are we're gonna do something together that's gonna be really great for this family. It's gonna be a little painful at the onset, but this is really gonna be great for the family. So I sat down and told him, and you know what? He didn't miss a beat. He was right there for me, and as I said, you don't do this without a family, and that's why I have such great respect for all the military families here, because it is the one left behind that carries and shoulders the big responsibility. When I traveled, when I was in exercises, when I was deployed around the world on different times, back at the Pentagon and senior service school, it was my husband that held our family together. He was the glue. He made sure our son was ready for school every day, took care of his own career, took care of our family. You know, I was someplace else. And you just kind of sign off what's happening at home because you don't have the energy. You have troops that report to you, and all of your focus needs to be on keeping the young men and women focused on a mission and keeping them safe. So your family has to be set aside. And fortunately, I had a wonderful husband that was glue, I said, that held our family together. Because when it's all said and done, when you come back home, when you step off the stage, any stage, from your career or whatever, if your family's not down at the bottom of the stairs to meet you, the rest of it doesn't make any difference. And I was fortunate, had a 23-year career. My last assignment was a base commander over Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan. Led men and women from 17 different military units around the world. Everything from security forces on. I had 7 squadrons that reported to me. We built up the old Soviet runway there, and had, I can't say enough about the young men and women in uniform and the mission, and I'm thinking about them all very much today. I know full well that they are deployed in a new, very, very dangerous environment. Pray for all of them, pray for the families, pray for their safe return. Because we owe what we have in the United States as America. As a woman, the things I've been able to achieve, living without the fear of somebody storming through my house in the middle of the night, taking my child away, we all owe that to the men and women in uniform and to the families that support them.
We're just getting warmed up.
Okay.
Just getting warmed up.
So 1984, enlisting to your commission, all the way to multiple tours in the Middle East, becoming colonel and base commander. What are some of the things that you remember most? I know you've received some wonderful awards. Tell us a little bit about those and some of the things that you really reflect upon that were most impactful during your time with the military.
Well, I would say many men and women in uniform have served for many years and haven't been as lucky as I have to be recognized, and I never forget that. That, you know, it's always about the right place, the right time, whatever. But it's also about superiors watching the men and women in their command and saying, it is important to recognize. It's important to be recognized as well. But I've been very blessed. From Meritorious Service Medal to many other medals, I've just been very blessed. But for me as a commander, it was more exciting to award that, rather than receive an award, to recognize the young men and women in uniform. And I always understood also that it meant so much to those families when we recognized their work, because the families have sacrificed a lot for that loved one in uniform. But I've been lucky to serve around the world. I had a tour of duty in the no-fly zone of Iraq in 1990, 1991. I served over there in many capacities. Was back in Rhine-Main, Germany at the air base there, and thought I was ready to come home because most of the Guard and Reserve folks had already been redeployed. And I was in my billets one night and got a call from the base commander. It's never good to get a call from base commander in the middle of the night. He said, "Are you ready to go?" And I said, "Ready to go home?" He said, "No, are you ready to go down south again?" He said, "We need somebody in contingency airlift ops," and that was my background with the C-130s. he said, we probably are going after Saddam Hussein, and we need somebody that knows how to transit the wounded in uniform by rotary onto the fixed wing aircraft and get them where they need to be. So I packed up my bags quickly, loaded on board a C-5. You've all seen the C-5 aircraft, pretty big, tall aircraft, seen it out of the landing strip here, out of the airport. And joining me, I was the only person left over there with contingency ops experience, because all the Guard, and at that time it was only Air National Guard that had contingency airlift ops on the C-130 short runway kind of airplane. You could deploy them into most any austere site where you might need to pick up casualties. But I was the only one left in the theater. And so I got tapped for that, got on board a C-1 or this C-5 late at night, and there were 17 other people there. And you know, when they've got a chaplain on board, you know you're probably not going to a hard fixed facility that's going to be easy. So I found out they were special ops guys, all of them. And we were headed into the thick, back into the no-fly zone near Sur Singh, Iraq. So I went there, did what we needed to do. Saddam Hussein wasn't taken out for a whole variety of reasons for many months or several years later. But when that was finished, and here's just another quick side story, because I came back to Rhine, got a call. It was actually a fax from the White House, and I thought, oh, this is real trouble. This is real trouble. And at the time, President Bush was, he was the head of the presidential delegation to the Paris Air Show. And so I had been chosen to represent the men and women in uniform at the Paris Air Show. Well, now I had been over there deployed for almost 7 months. I had nothing but BDUs, fatigues. I didn't have any pretty dresses to be at the embassy in Paris or anyplace else. And so my husband, God bless him, he took an assistant from his office that he thought was about my size. God bless him, she's about 2 sizes smaller than I was. But he took her shopping to Denver and brought me the most beautiful outfits, which, thank goodness, in uniform overseas, I had lost quite a bit of weight, so I was able to wear all these beautiful clothes. But I flew up, I guess I was still in Iraq. I took a helicopter into insular Turkey, took a C-9 aeromedical airlift up to Germany, and got on a train. I can't remember how I did all this, but I had to get a special, I only travel on NATO orders. So I didn't have a passport, just these NATO orders. We weren't sure how those would work with me going all the way to France. So actually, I got to the consulate in Turkey, and it's amazing how quickly they can get you a passport. I mean, I had that, when you have the President of the United States on a piece of paper, I had a passport in 2 hours or less. They took me back to base, I flew up, got on the train to go up to Paris, and I'm thinking, holy, I got off the train, and there was a big car there with flags on it. It was from the embassy. I was like, whoa, this is really exciting. So got in the car, they took me to meet, I think it was De Gaulle Airport, where my husband had flown in on Air Force Two, because they invited him to. I always reminded him because of me. But flew in there, and we had 5 days. We flew on board Bell Textron helicopters out to Normandy, landed right on Normandy. I mean, the most wonderful experience of my life. But in addition to that, I got a field promotion to major, which field promotions, they're a little tough to orchestrate. I do not know to this day how it happened, but that I was pinned on in the embassy in Paris. And then all the fun was over, the pretty clothes were all packed up. The red carpet was rolled out in front of us, and I used to think on the air, who's that red carpet for? And I realized it was us. It was a really pretty heady experience, but all the pretty clothes had to be rolled back up, because I had to go back down back to those places again before I was ultimately called back home. And then I had to bring a whole bunch of equipment back with me that had been left behind that belonged here to the Air National Guard. So yeah, that was my first time in 1990, 1991. Never really thought I would go back to that part of the world again. And then lo and behold, I was at a point in my career, I had gone to senior service school at the International College. It was back at the National War College at Fort Leavenworth near in Washington, D.C., and got my stripes there. And then I started looking and saying, I really want to deploy once more before I'm too long in the tooth and they won't take me anymore. So I thought, what do I have to do to get there? And I realized I needed to become an expert on building up bare bases. That means taking a base from where you got your rucksack, you drop in, nothing there. And then you stand up that base to full operational capacity in 72 hours. So I went to training at different places in the United States and around the world and got my stripes to build up the air base to full operational capacity, because I knew everything downwind was going to be a bare base. If I wanted to be in the action, I better have the credentials to do that. So that's what got me the ticket, because you have to be hand-selected. And remember, I'm a woman, I'm in the Air National Guard, I'm a mother. The chances of me getting a command billet in the desert were pretty darn small. So I knew I had to be better than anybody else to get that. And ultimately, I was selected, and I worked for, once again, landed in Bagram Air Base in the middle of the night. It is not a good thing when a 3-star general pulls you off of the aircraft, lifts your suitcases for you, drives himself onto up to the airplane, because in a war zone, generals don't drive their own vehicles. He drove his own vehicle. He even had an unlit cigar on the, out next to the airplane, which you really don't see. You don't see that, But he commanded the whole base. But anyway, he picked my bags. He threw them in the back of the truck, took me to my billet, threw me the key, and said, "I fired the commander before you. He is on his way back to California." That was at 2 o'clock in the morning. "I will see you at 0600. And at 0601, you will have the command and control over every blue suitor Air Force person, and accountability for those men and women at 0601 in the morning." And we were spread. We were not only in, that area. We had in Afghanistan, we also had a C-17 refueling operation up in Turkmenistan that I had responsibility for. So we had men and women all over. That was probably the most frightening experience in my life, realizing it was hard to know all the time where they're at, because they would come and go with OSI in the middle of the night out to some place, and I couldn't know really until they got back. But realizing if somebody goes down, I had to be involved with their family. I'll never forget, the next day after rolling into Afghanistan, we had what we call a fallen comrade ceremony, where everybody, regardless, news travels around like wildfire on the base, and you roll out of your billets no matter what time of day or night it is, and you line those streets, and you see those Humvees with a flag-draped coffin line by line, and there were 11 of them the second night I was there. And we go all the way up to the aircraft, the C-17, that are going to bring those bodies of servicemen and women home. And if there's one thing I could say to families, we never leave your men and women alone. When I got ready to redeploy for my service in Afghanistan, once again the general said, he pulled me off. I was on a C-130. Props were going, we were getting ready to take off, and here he comes, the old cigar-smoking general, and he said, "I've got one more job for you." He said, "I'm going to pull you off here, your bags off here, you're going to accompany the body of 9 flag-draped coffins home." And I got on board alone in the back of a C-17, a huge cavernous aircraft, and accompanied those bodies back to Dover Air Force Base. And what an honor. I think of all the things I've done in my life, that was the biggest honor that I've ever had to accompany those men and women home.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Rita. Many of us can't even fathom the emotions and the responsibility and the things that you faced during that.
You know, you have a long time to think about it. I think, you know, my combat boots, because the coffins are strapped to the aircraft, to the floor of the aircraft, and my combat boot was just inches away from that first coffin. And it's a long ways from Bagram Air Force Base, Afghanistan, to Dover Air Force Base. And you have a lot of time to think about the sacrifices, think about the families who are going to meet you, think about how their lives are altered because of the service of those individuals in uniform.
Wow. Wow. And the good news is you now have the secret to an expedited passport service. You just have to spend 2 tours.
You're really slick.
So Rita, towards the end of your time in the Guard, you entered politics, and maybe talk to us a little bit about
What was I thinking?
first as Chief of Staff for Governor Geringer, which he asked you. Then you actually took it upon yourself, ran and successfully became the state auditor. Tell us what drove you to politics. Tell us about some of the memories.
I had to be completely nuts. Actually, I had another tour of duty back at the Pentagon, Encounter Drug, which was probably the most exciting mission that I have taken. And so during that tour in the Pentagon, Encounter Drug Directorate, I actually wrote the strategy for asset forfeiture of assets that are seized during a drug raid. That was exciting. Got to be in a lot of the ports up and down the eastern seaboard. As you understand, there's a huge amount of drug traffic that flows along I-95 up and down the coastal cities and stops in Baltimore and other places, unfortunately. But I got to work with undercover cops in New York City. That was really, really exciting. I had never seen anybody, really out on drugs until I was in Times Square working the night beat with the undercover guys. I saw young people they looked like animals. They were shot, they were gone, they were probably, they looked to be really old, they were probably in their young teens. And the saddest thing for me is nobody wanted them. They would arrest them, but nobody wanted them. Law enforcement didn't want them in their jails, they didn't have the capacity to care for them. The ambulance didn't want to come and take them because they knew it was a huge cost in the emergency rooms and they couldn't help them. But I saw young men mostly chained to street light posts in downtown New York City that looked like wild animals. And I will never, ever forget. That's indelible in my mind as to what drugs can do to a human being, lives destroyed. As I said, that was another exciting military thing. But I finished that tour, I wrote some strategy, did some work there, it was time to come back home. And then I thought, now what am I going to do? I've had a lot of highs, that's exciting. And then got the call, Governor Geringer said, I think you've had some really good experience to be Chief of Staff. He'd had 3 Chiefs of Staff in 3 years. That is not a good, that is not a good thing. And so I joined him for the final few months of his first term and went through the complete second term, literally because I was just looking for a job. I needed something to do. My military thing, I did a lot of full-time. I was back to a part-time thing. I thought, I'm going to try something else. So anyway, that was my toe into politics. Good, bad, or indifferent. It did give me a breadth of experience that I couldn't have envisioned in any other capacity. And I think actually, I was watching the statewide elected office and thinking, I think I could do that, but you got to get elected first. That's the hard part. The easy part's serving, the hard part's getting elected, and that is getting to be a more difficult thing to do more and more every day. And it's one thing I really worry about is that we are just by the acrimonious environment that exists around running for office, that truly a whole generation of young folks aren't going to step up and run for office. I think that really hurts Wyoming, it hurts the nation. And if there's one thing I worry about for our state, it's leadership. And who are we looking at next? Who is going to lead us? Wyoming has everything going for it. We're a great state, great people, kids from rural environments with our 4-H, our FFA, our civic groups that come together, our natural resources. Wyoming is where it's at. But Wyoming needs good leaders at all levels, from the local level way up to the top. And I worry about that because of the environment that exists today. It is a really ugly environment with a lot of dark money. I think that the social media has not helped. It's difficult to stand up and stand out and put your family through what people can do to you. It is really ugly out there. But we've got to have people step up to lead this state, or we're going to fall behind, and we don't deserve to fall behind. Our children, our grandchildren, we can do great things in Wyoming. I am very bullish about the Wyoming economy. I think we can have great days ahead for the state, but we need good leadership.
Yeah, and thank you, Rita, for being that example to show how people can lead with grace in elected office. Certainly you did that as your time.
I wasn't graceful all the time.
I'm throwing you compliments here, Rita. You're supposed to work.
You know, like everybody else, I've fallen a lot. I've fallen short of my own expectations and the expectations of others. I like to say I've fallen, I've gotten a lot of bruises and bumps and cuts. Fortunately, I've yet to break my femur in leadership, and I think so it's been good overall.
Joking aside, the humility that she shows is one of the reasons why you've made such a great leader. So from
I'm not humble at home, Joe.
We'll have those conversations off the dais. So from dentistry to military to politics, that's a pretty fascinating journey in and of itself, but it doesn't end there. So while you're leaving politics, you made a transition to the energy industry, and I think you alluded to some of that experience and really what the military did. But tell us how the opportunity to get involved with Rocky Mountain Power came your way.
Well, I had a lot of great experience at building up air bases, and part of that experience is learning about all the infrastructure you need to build up a base. And I really got my feet wet, if you will, in the whole, side. You look out in Afghanistan, there are no lights because there's no electricity, but we had to power our base. We had to have food for the troops, we had to power up the, everything you need. When you've got fighters, you've got heavy lifters, you've got troops on the ground. So I actually, when I was state auditor, the president of Rocky Mountain Power came to visit me. We had a lot of great discussions, and then he asked me to be on his advisory board. At the time, Pacific Corp had a board of citizens that traveled around and promoted the industry. So I did that, and so then I had left the state auditor's office and spent a year with Mick McMurray, our very dear friend. By the way, Mick asked me when I left the state auditor's office, he said, I'd really like to come to work for me. I was like, what will I do with Mick McMurray? And he said, I have some leases on some uranium land. This is the tie now to what I do now. And he said, we're going to prove up, we're going to find out really what kind of uranium we have and how we're going to mine it, what's the potential there. And he said, I'd really like to have you join us. So I did for a year, worked with Mick, which was a fabulous, fabulous experience. And then Rocky Mountain Power came calling. And so, because I had known the president and CEO, he said, Rita, we really need you on board. We're losing some traction in Wyoming, so I joined. I spent about 10 years with Rocky Mountain Power, learning a lot more about transmission, generation, all of those kinds of things, with different kinds of resources. A great, great experience. And then at the end, took over as director of Wyoming Infrastructure, new investments in the state of Wyoming, so that was a fabulous opportunity. And then I retired. That was about the third time I retired, I think. And I bought a house on Cary to restore, a 1951 mid-century modern home to restore. I did about 7.5 tons of demolition work in the house and realized it was at a point where now I needed experts to come there. Expert, in addition to my husband, who's a wonderful finish carver. He's a private investigator, but he has wonderful skills. I bought him a $245 saw, and he has done thousands of dollars worth of work. I should have bought that for him many years ago. But that said, I got it ready where I just needed to bring in professionals to do all the infrastructure and some of that. Now what I'm going to do. And then got a call from TerraPower. TerraPower is a nuclear innovation company founded by Bill Gates in 2008 with a focus not only on medical isotopes to fight advanced cancer, but also on nuclear power generation. And they needed, they were looking, they knew they were going to site a project, what we call the natrium and sodium advanced nuclear power reactor. They knew where they were going to site a project, they weren't quite sure where, but they were looking at Wyoming, looking at a site where a coal plant was going to be shutting down. And so I joined that group. And I have been with them 2.5 years. It's been a wonderful, wonderful experience. Once again, my background was like a patchwork quilt, but all of the things I've done have kind of fed into this job now. So that's my job, the executive outreach and siting that nuclear power plant. We're making great strides. It is a very, very heavy lift. I think 2 things in the future in the United States of America for this economy to be strong is going to be desalination technology to make sure we have the water we need to power the economy, but it's also going to be electricity to meet the demands. This United States of America, like other developing countries, but developed countries around the world, ride on the back of electricity. Everything you want at Christmas time, it all needs to be plugged in. With the work towards electrification, demand for, greener electricity, and we can have a discussion about that all day, but there needs to be a baseload power source that can feed into the growing demand for electricity. So that's what I'm working on now. I don't know when I will stop working. I'm not quite sure. The house to be renovated isn't quite done. Those of you who have been there, I use it for entertainment, it's my corporate office, but also groups that want to do something for a fundraiser are welcome to use the house. And I see Bob Salazar is here, and you were there. Sometimes I give away dinners at the house where people purchase those at Denim and Diamonds or the book bash or Wyoming Mining Association, and people come to the house. So a kitchen will go in spite of that. I've had hundreds of people there in the last 2 years. They like to see progress on this old house. But the house doesn't have a kitchen, which is a little limiting. But it will have a kitchen after the first of the year sometime, because I pay as I go. And as you know, all new windows in the house, upstairs and downstairs, all new electrical, all new plumbing, all new HVAC, keeps me working. And that's, my husband gives a sigh of relief because I continue to work because he's really frightened of being, I told him I'm gonna ride along with him and learn to be a PI, and I can be his eyes and ears, and he's scared to death that I might retire and be his eyes and ears. But anyway, that said, that brings us to the present day, and here we are in this stage, and I think, timekeeper?
We are
The witching hour.
about there, but I have to say something. I'll probably get in trouble for it later, but the irony is not lost on me as the chamber is deep in improving the development process locally. I have to ask, is it easier to renovate an old house in Cheyenne or site a nuclear power plant?
I think citing the power plant because it's not my money. It's easier to use Bill Gates' money to build the power plant. It is pretty pricey to restore a home, as you know, but these neighborhoods in Cheyenne, I'm just heartened all the time when I see the dumpsters up in front of these old beautiful homes, and these homes are being restored. You talk about being able to bring people back in the downtown arena as West Edge goes forward. Families in there. It used to be my husband and I redid his house when I married that fine man, and we spent several years restoring how old is that house? 1932 home, which is completely different than the 1951 home. So I think it's really important. What's sad, I think, in Cheyenne is that we closed a lot of our community schools, which caused families to flee out. But what we're seeing in our community downtown, we're seeing young people, we're seeing young professionals, we're seeing people walking with baby carriages, we're seeing dogs. I think that is really healthy for Cheyenne, what's coming for the city of Cheyenne.
That's great, and a wonderful segue to my last question. So
I try to help you out.
You're fantastic there, so thank you for helping me keep my job for next
Yes.
year. We could like to talk all day, but as our newest inductee into the Circle of Champions, this is a wonderful opportunity for somebody who has been incredibly successful, incredibly invested in our state and in our community, to talk to the leaders around the room and share any words of wisdom, advice, recommendations as you think about the future of where we need to go, what we need to do, how we continue to make Cheyenne great in this state, the wonderful state that it is. What advice would you give to the audience?
Well, I think our president and CEO of the chamber, Dale, mentioned education. I'm such an advocate of education. We have to understand what's happening in K-12 education today. Something is amiss. The state is spending a lot of money. I don't know if that money is getting down to the classroom level. I believe Wyoming has beautiful school facilities. I believe we have great teachers, but something is amiss if in fact the facts we're hearing from the different tests that the children are taking, if they all aren't succeeding, something is wrong. Our teacher-to-student ratio is good. Our teachers are well educated. I think we have to understand more about the family dynamics. Our children, I think today a lot of children are going to school. They're not ready to be in school. They come from fragmented families. They don't have the same family structure that has them up to speed by the time they hit, they're 5 years old and hit kindergarten. We have to figure this out. Wyoming is desperate for a good workforce. And if our public schools aren't churning out, young men and women that are ready to get into the workforce, not just from skills, but for, your social skills as well. How much is the school's responsibility? If it's not happening at home, what do the schools do about it? I think we blame the schools a lot, but I think a lot of it starts certainly back with the families. But we have to keep our focus on K through 12 education. We also have to keep our focus on housing. Access to affordable housing. As we work this project out in Kimmer, my concern, of course, is quality workforce, and it's on housing, affordable housing for people. They can be making $40 an hour, but that in a lot of situations is not enough money to, sometimes even apartment rent. We're out of whack here in the state, but if we're going to move forward, we've got to have quality K through 12 education. We've got to have a solid workforce. We have to have affordable, accessible houses, and we're also going to have to address, and businesses are going to have to step up on child care. 51% of the population, whatever it is, Dale, better than I do, females. And what's the number one need in the workplace to unleashing the potential of females is child care. I rest my case.
There you have it. We are at the end of the time. Ladies and gentlemen, if you join me one more time in recognizing our newest inductee into the Circle of Champions, Ms. Rita